Check, check. Check, check. All right. Sounds good. We'll get started here in just a minute. Too high a volume. Thank you. How's that? I just adjusted it. Got a new mic a couple weeks ago. The last one was too low, and I'm glad this one can be too high, but I don't want to be screaming in your ears. How's that sound? All right. On my phone, it sounds okay. Let's get into it. Welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. Today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some things in the stock market and how I am relating it to the current crypto cycle. We're going to get plenty into crypto, but starting off with just some of our indicators to keep in the back of our mind. Stocks are still doing good, while crypto, not as much. Having a little bit of a downturn. You'll see that over the last, I think this is the 30-day chart, that's correct. Over the last 30 days, we were elevated in greed and just started to taper off a little bit. This is a new low as far as fear goes. If we go to our last 1 year scale, I'll give this a second to load, or you know what, let's just hit refresh. Sometimes this site lags a little bit. We'll come back to this one if it's frozen a little bit. Here we go. So yeah, we are in neutrality territory, getting down into fear. Still not loading up. Here we go. Here we go. I promise my internet's fine. But over the course of the last year, you can see that we have been in. All right. A little bit laggy here. I apologize for the delay. Here's the last year. We have overall been in an uptrend. And in the video I did on the stock market yesterday, I talked about how, as far as this recent move up, we are a bit detached just from the moving averages, and it is normal to get a pullback at this time. So we were elevated into greed, high greed, and unless Bitcoin was getting into all-time highs, we weren't going to go into extreme greed. I'll show you the levels and things I'm looking for on the chart, but after a few rejections, coming back down, getting some support, and so after we find some sort of base and support, I'm pretty sure we'll see Bitcoin continue to go upward because the stock market is doing the same. The stock market might pull crypto up with it pretty soon. A couple charts to keep in the back of your mind is if the stock market overall is able to get into new all-time high territory, then I believe we are in the non-recessionary environment. But post-inauguration, with all the new administration experiments going on into the economy, as long as we're not retesting and getting lower than those recent lows we've had back in, I believe that was April, then we should see newer all-time highs. Macro-wise, that's what we would be led to believe. Also, the second year of presidential cycles tends to be the weakest. So I've been of the mind, just because the Fed was cutting by 25 basis points, which is typically non-recessionary. They've been holding rates. Unless the Fed is consecutively starting to cut by 50 basis points, I am not worried yet. I do think that could be coming in a year, but we knew this year was going to be high volatility. The last couple of years have been great for the stock market. High volatility has returned, but we haven't hit that euphoric phase yet. And I have a perspective where I believe that we will hit that euphoria pretty soon, or at least get something similar of a dot-com bubble type situation. One of the charts to keep in the back of your mind, at least long macro term, for any of you consistent viewers of the channel or people that'll stick with this channel. I'm going to keep talking about this because when we do get that recession, which I don't believe is imminent, could be wrong, of course, but when we do, keep this in mind, because when there's a lot of fear in the news, the sky's falling, everyone's complaining about the market, those are the times you want to buy. We are retail. Retail people are the ones watching this video, and so we have to keep in mind that we need to buy the dips and buy the fear. Overall, it plays out pretty well for us if you have a patient macro perspective. So screenshot this chart. I think it's one of the best charts for a casual investor. And my channel, I try to speak to the casual investor, not the daily, weekly, monthly traders as much, because I'm a casual investor. And I believe as a market psychologist, someone who has an education and expertise, experience in the field of psychology, I know that's what suits my investment outlook best. And I try to bring that even into the crazy world of crypto to try to figure out how to have a more patient approach with crypto. A lot of channels, part of the reason I made my channel is there's a lot of channels out there. They're very emotional, short-term thinkers. And I am trying to take a more broad perspective on the crypto market. Going over to one last macro stock chart indicator, and this one, I think it tells us where we are as far as bubbles go. And the price earnings ratio, at least on the regular chart, doesn't show we're quite in bubble territory, getting close. But when we go to the Shiller kind of shows maybe a 1998 style scenario of overvaluation. Things are expensive right now. They could get more expensive if we are getting high up into the Shiller, into the 40s. We're probably getting close to where the end of a bubble could be. There are some bubble indicators on TradingView. They're not going ballistic yet, but I'm looking for a little bit of euphoria before we get a correction, because typically that's what we saw in 2021. We saw euphoria, Wall Street bets, people getting rich on crypto, all that stuff we saw in 21 after all the quantitative easing that happened with the money printing, the low rates after the COVID drop. We saw euphoria in the dot-com bubble before a massive correction. And of course, in '08, the market was peaking again before it rolled over. So typically we do have a bit more euphoria than what we've seen. And going over into, let's start transitioning to crypto. In crypto, we are in the fourth year, and people typically look for 4-year cycles. You can see this phenomena, at least from the last 3 cycle tops. November 2013, we had a top. December 2017, Bitcoin topped. November 21, Bitcoin topped, even though alt season was here. We had a double top. And there was a top here in March, of course. That's technically, people don't say this, but I like to keep this in the back of my mind in case things are different, is that technically between the halvings, March was the cycle top. We'll see if that has any sort of an impact long term. We'll see. Is that resetting the 4-year cycle to be in 2028? We'll see. We'll find out down the road. But with the tops being in Q4, every post-halving year, that would say that we might get a cycle top as far as this year. Now, that's just going by patterns. And a lot of people in the crypto world who make videos, post on Twitter, all the so-called crypto experts, That's one thing a lot of people are looking for. And we'll see. There's market cycles, they kind of rhyme a little bit or repeat a little bit. I think you don't want to get too sucked into the prediction game. Your strategy is more important than predictions. And as far as what the market does, if we don't go to a cycle top, it does not mean, at least for me, that I will stop investing. I'll still dollar cost average into crypto at certain key levels and discounts because I've already been buying into it. So I believe in it enough that if it gets lower, I have the mindset to be greedy when others are fearful. So even if the cycle top was delayed, doesn't mean I'm going to stop buying. Again, my strategy is, to me, more important than anything I'm trying to predict. But if we are trying to predict, then we could be looking for a cycle top this year. And on this channel, by the way, I do videos on miners and altcoins. So during the course of this video, if there are any altcoins you would like to take a look at together in the charts, have a discussion, I'll share with you my thoughts. We can do that. You can comment those below. Be happy to have conversations with you guys about any stocks or cryptos. All right. Something I talked about yesterday, and I've been thinking about it a lot more since I looked at it. Let me get a final sip of my coffee. I was looking at this overall pattern here, and I guess you could say somewhat of a fractal. But I was taking a look at this big V recovery we're having. We have our fib drawn from the high to the low, and we see the S&P testing the 888, possibly getting above it. And so I was thinking to myself, what did it look like in 2020 after we had the COVID correction? We had the COVID correction. The Fed came in. They started money printing, lowering rates. We had a very similar V recovery. And you can see it got to the 888, a little bit of a correction. Once it started to get above the 888, we started going to all-time highs, testing some of those fibs, moving averages, and continuing onward. And so I was just drawing some comparisons to that, and I started thinking to myself, so we tested the 888, we're getting above it. Are we going to start making the 888 into support, an all-time high soon? And the part I was thinking to myself is, how could the S&P 500 get to the upper end of this channel? And for any of you that don't know, the S&P has been in this channel since the great financial crisis. It is hit the top of this channel, ridden up, and it has tested the lower area of this channel around the COVID time. Yes, it got a little bit lower, but when you take a look at where the weekly is closed, it's close enough. So I was thinking to myself, what could make the S&P go to somewhere around 7,000? Seems unrealistic, but my thought process is this. The Fed came in, was printing money and doing quantitative easing down here. That shot it up for a while, okay? The Fed has not started quantitative easing yet. They have not come in with the money printer. And if we go to the quantitative easing, quantitative tightening chart, right here, I'd like to take a look at it on the monthly. We can see that in August of 2019, that's when they started the transition. This is February 2020. This is when they really started to inject liquidity into the market. I mean, it's crazy. From 4 trillion to 7 trillion, 3 trillion printed out of thin air. This is why we have inflation. And for people saying it's a completely democratic problem, it's both. Both political parties have been the cause of this inflation. But we see that after the quantitative easing, the QE really started to take off, the market took off. The Fed so far has just been doing quantitative tightening. Now overall, so this is interesting. This is what we have in June. And here it's showing a little bit of an uptick, or at least sideways action. We zoom in, it's sideways. We go to the monthly. I am wondering if on the 100-month moving average, that is where we're going to see the Fed transition yet again from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing. Now, those averages are right there. I think we could have a turnaround sometime soon. But The fact we haven't had that yet, that leads me to think that once the Fed, if the Fed starts doing a lot of quantitative easing, we could see a bit of a pump. How fast or slow, I don't know, but we could see a bit of a pump that takes crypto, that takes the stock market into those all-time highs, and that's where we get the cycle top. So that's sort of the theory that's developing in my mind, is that, remember, we had QE in here. The market's already having a similar V recovery, getting above the 888 as support. It tested it, getting above as support. It tested it, getting above as support. So if QE's coming in later, I could see that narrative starting to form from this, that we get some sort of a big pump from it before the crash. That is the working theory I have right now. We'll see if it plays out. Charles, how are you? A.dev, hope you're doing well. Yeah, if you guys are watching live, feel free to comment below. Again, I'd be happy to have conversations about any stocks or cryptos if you type them in the comments below. So those are some things I'm looking for. Going over to the VIX, we've been watching this each week. Is it going to get underneath all these moving averages on the weekly? If so, market's going to be pumping. It's going to be pumping well. As far as one of our leading indicators, I like the percent of stocks above the 200-day average, the MMTH chart, running into a little resistance here. We talked about this in yesterday's video, saying, you know, if we're running into a little resistance here, we might see a minor pullback before going higher. I had no idea Trump and Elon were going to have quite a breakup. And if any of you guys were watching the feud and the back and forth on Twitter, X now, it was, in my opinion, is pretty comical to watch. Yeah, I'm not shocked whatsoever. You know, I was wondering when it was going to happen, because they're two very strong-willed individuals with big egos. I'm not saying anything good or bad against them. It's just when you get people with those big of egos in the same room who want to be alphas, they're going to butt heads. And boy, did it send Tesla and some parts of the market down. It's so funny to me how, you know, the market was already having this kind of leading indicator that a little pullback was to be expected, and then Elon and Trump beefing with each other just, I think, added to that pullback, if you will. So that was quite fun to watch. Unemployment, yield curve inversion, we've talked about that. Let's move over to crypto. Charles wants to take a look at Tesla. Yeah, we'll take a look at Tesla and Charles. If you haven't looked into the feud going on between Trump and Elon, it's a narrative, but that narrative has been affecting Tesla a bit. We'll get into that here right after taking a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin had this nice big move up. Let's measure this out. From that low, it was about a 50% move up. Okay, so we went from 75K to 112K in a month and a half. And so got detached from the moving averages, coming down a little bit. As I was talking about with the stocks before, drawing that comparison from the V recovery from 2020 till today, I'm wondering, I want to take a look at Bitcoin and the alt season indicators, what happened around that time. And so going back a little bit, just to where we were in 2020, after QE came in, okay, let's draw from the high to the low here, because we had a recent icky correction. High to the low here, you can see Bitcoin, it tested that all-time high kind of once before, didn't get quite above it, so not the same structure, but once it got above the 888, or let's say the 786, we had a big move from the 618 to 786. Once it got above the 786, it was chopping between the all-time high, the 888, 786, hitting some moving averages before going further up. Not even coming back down to the 888 over here. And then we truly started to rocket up. So we got a little bit into the all-time high area, came down, and then boom. That's when we started to really take off. So again, we're just drawing comparisons from the S&P from 2020 till now, because we have V-shaped recoveries. Again, what did I just talk about with crypto or Bitcoin in 2020? Once it got above the 786, it tested the 888, 786 moving averages. I was looking at this 102K area in the 50-day moving average as good support, because where's the 102K? When we draw a fib, our golden ratio from the high to the low, the 102K is a major fib area at the 1618. So the 1618 at 102K, this line right here, that's been bought up nicely, and it also wicked down to the 50-day moving average. With this recent downtrend, I will say, at least here on the daily, it does look like it's in this downward channel, lower highs, lower lows, but we'll see once we kind of break out of this downtrend if the 888 is going to continue to be a support chop in through here before taking off. That's just some similarity to what we saw in 2020 post-COVID correction. Let's get into Tesla for our friend Charles here. Yeah, so Tesla, I mean, this stuff, this amazes me. I'll never get over this, how a $1 trillion stock in the course of a day, you know, Trump and Elon having a breakup, that over the course of the day, it can have a 20% drawdown. Think about that. $1 trillion, 20%. So we're talking about $200 billion just leaving a stock within a day because Elon and Trump are having a breakup on Twitter. It just blows my mind. But what we see with Tesla, so I have this micro fib drawn here within a macro fib. We have the macro fib high to low, a big high to low here, so we got to draw another fib there. But from that high to low, we can see Tesla staying above its 382, which is good. It's not dead yet. And its 200-day moving average. So the 382, like the 50-week moving average, you want to stay above those to show that bullishness can still continue. People are buying that 382 and 200-day right there at around 295, not too far away. But we are in an ascending channel. Higher highs, higher lows. Ascending channels, some people believe that they're more bearish than they are bullish, that when they eventually break, they break hard. And we can see here how Tesla has gone up a fib level each time, maybe target 172. Something I've also been watching a lot is Tesla loves this 100-month moving average for its lows. People buy that 100-month moving average. And if we get to 172, where is 172? 172 is right around this 100-month moving average. So if Tesla were to all of a sudden break this ascending channel, and you love Tesla, that 100-month moving average would have to hold. Now, if the 100-month moving average ever started to break, I think it could be really bad for Tesla really soon. So as long as it keeps the structure and riding up the 100-month moving average, if you love Tesla, I think, again, that's an area to look at getting into the dips heavy. But that's the risk you take. You got to have some sort of strategy or plan. And if you love Tesla, you know, that's, to me, a can't miss area. But if it ever broke, look out below. I would not be surprised in a recession, a crash, to see Tesla get around 30 to 50 at worst. A.dev, when can we expect the Bitcoin miners to really run? Do you have an estimate? And if you don't see them run, will you sell out? Yeah, let's, let me just wrap this up for Charles here for Tesla. All right. Yeah, for Tesla, I think this is the beginning of dollar cost average territory, at least on the daily. Okay, the 200 and the 382. It could be a good area for buyers to come in, and you see the buyers already came in. They bought this wick hard at this fib and moving average. But if it does get lower, we have the lower area of the channel around 242. If the channel breaks, remember what we talked about, 172 or that 100-month moving average. You can set a buy order if you're on Robinhood or some other sort of account if those are areas that you would want to target. As far as miners, let's let's go through something. I've been wanting to do this and I keep forgetting. So with miners, let's turn off that so make it clean. Um, we'll get rid of some things here, clean it up a little bit. Um, you know what? Yeah, let's get rid of. We'll keep that on here. You know, we'll we'll just draw a channel later. I've been meaning to do that. As far as miners, let's go to a bigger chart here, the weekly, and let's add on Bitcoin. We'll add on Bitcoin. We'll add on Bitcoin dominance. So miners, this is 2017. This is 2017. Maybe we should go to the daily. It might show us a little bit better. I have to go back a bit. Here we go. So as far as Mara is the number one mining stock. It has a $5.64 billion market cap, price of 16 bucks. I keep reading that they're the second most, they hold the second most Bitcoin behind MicroStrategy. So I think, at these levels, it could be a big play. So Bitcoin topped a little bit after Mara topped in 2017. But you'll see Mara, it was hanging around at these prices pretty low. This is 2017. And on this channel, I've been comparing this cycle. I think there's more similarities between this cycle in 2017 than this cycle and the last one. The last one, there were alts and Bitcoin dominance was giving us some good rotation, at least steadily for about 600 days before we had that alt season. In 2017, alt season kind of came out of nowhere right after Bitcoin topped. But the one similarity between both of the last cycles is that we didn't get the rotation, the true rotation alt season, until Bitcoin topped. Once Bitcoin topped, we had that massive rotation where we get the alt season. We had a steady alt season last cycle. 2017, it came all at once. We have not had a steady alt season this cycle. But what I want to show you here is in 2017, what happened is that Mara, it was just chopping between $4, $9, $5, and then boom, went up to 40 bucks. So it did an 8x. I would say, there's an average around $5-6. Let's say $6, okay? So it did about a 6 or 7x out of nowhere, and then that was it. Okay? And that was right before Bitcoin peaked. Let's go to last cycle. So here we are in April of 21. This was the peak. Okay? Bitcoin. Sorry. That was the peak of Mara. Where did Bitcoin peak? Did I put on the right chart? I put on Bitcoin dominance. My God. I'm sorry. Let me go back. I thought I had Bitcoin on. I'm an idiot. Let's go back. Okay, this is Bitcoin dominance. Jesus. So Bitcoin dominance, once it came down, we had that rotation. Mara already topped. We'll overlay Bitcoin too. Okay. Bitcoin dominance, as it started to come down, okay, Mara was already topping before the true rotation. Now, Mara did have a bigger top over here at 80, but what can we see here? That Mara was going from 50 cents, $1, $4, $2, up to $54. Okay. That was 20x, 25x for Mara after Bitcoin dominance started to roll over. I thought I put on the Bitcoin chart. My apologies. Let's add on Bitcoin. Here we go. Now I can pretend like I know a little bit of what I'm talking about. All right, so now we have Bitcoin. Same thing still stands, the 2017 thing. So we see Bitcoin steadily going up. It peaked here mid-December. But again, Mara just popped off. It did a 6, 7x, then it was done in 2017. Last cycle, let's find the Bitcoin alt season top. You can see there's more of a marriage between the Bitcoin and Mara going up together. All right. Charles, you're welcome. So more of a marriage between them going up. All right. We saw how Bitcoin dominance typically leads to alts blowing having a blow off top. And here, when Bitcoin made its second top, Mara made its second top. Okay, going back to 2017, somewhat of a similarity, a little bit different. So I would say there is a topping process together between Mara, and that makes sense to me. Mara owns the second most amount of Bitcoin behind MicroStrategy, and so it would make sense they kind of move together. What has been going on this cycle? This cycle, we see Bitcoin moving above Mara. Okay. Now, back in December of 24, they moved up together. Back in, what is this, 23 to 24? Where's that March top right here? Mara moved ahead of it. Okay. So right now, Mara's a little bit behind Bitcoin. So as far as how I'm looking at it, I could see Mara running up a 2x from here, even before alt season. Okay. And let's put it on auto. There we go. Let's go over to the weekly. Let's look at big picture. Big picture, again, I could see, and we have Bitcoin overlaid here. I'm trying to get the charts to be somewhat similar. I could see Mara not just getting back to its all-time highs, but we do have this trend line from these former peaks, 2017, 21, where if Mara got up there, I mean, this is my sell area between 80 and 170. That would be a 10x max for Mara. Now, there's no guarantee it has to get there. I will remind you that there are altcoins that only hit their 786 retracement. And so I have targets and percentages of how much profits I'm pulling out. So I can take out something close to my initial investment here and then play with house money. That's part of my plan. Depending on how greedy I get, I have certain percentages where I am absolutely out if we hit this trend line. I am absolutely out. But between there, I'll be taking some profits as well. It seems to me, so miners top when Bitcoin tops. Why haven't we seen miners top now that Bitcoin... I have this emoji right in front of now that Bitcoin tops multiple times. A.dev, I have a simple answer for you on that one. I don't believe Bitcoin has topped. I don't believe Bitcoin has had its true top. Again, when does alt season come in? Once Bitcoin tops. Let's go back to this. Let's see. Let's just go over to Bitcoin. We'll go over to Bitcoin. Let's use the clean chart. And then let's add on dominance. This is worth looking at every week, in my opinion. We don't get the alt season rotation until Bitcoin tops. Okay? So when do we get alt season? Let's go over to the daily. It'll show it even better. Let's go over to the daily. We'll go to 2017 and 21. Bitcoin topped here, okay? Alt season, that rotation of Bitcoin dominance. Again, Bitcoin dominance, percent of money, crypto money that's in Bitcoin. When dominance tanks, that's alt season. That's the rotation. 21, Bitcoin dominance, Bitcoin top. Bitcoin dominance tanks after Bitcoin tops. All right? Let's just go over to our Bitcoin chart. I don't believe Bitcoin has topped for multiple reasons. I'll get into it for a couple reasons. Let's get rid of this. So Bitcoin, you can see here from the high to the low, I believe my fib targets are here between the 2618 and 3618. Last cycle, or every cycle I will say, we hit lower fib extensions. We have to put I'll show you multiple reasons why I believe Bitcoin has not truly topped yet. So last cycle, we got between the 3618, 4236, okay? You can clearly see that. We have, let me click off that. We have this phenomenon known as a logarithmic regression. That's what the rainbow chart shows. Rainbow chart, by having these regressing peaks, and I think the old rainbow chart that broke a little bit with the recent low and 22 shows us even better. We have these receding peaks. That's part of log regression. Okay, these receding peaks would say a top would be somewhere in these orange boxes, 146 to low 200K. All right, where is 146 to low 200K? Pretty much between the 2618 and 3618. All right, let's work with that. Let's add on one of our log regression indicators. I'll show you just by fibs. I'll show you by indicators. We have these tops. Let's clean this up a little bit. We have these tops in this log regression indicator, and where would that potential top be? Somewhere around that 2618 or a little higher, okay? 155, 200K in that area. So, and I'll do one more for you. We can go to Bitcoin on the monthly. We can add in one of our strength indicators, such as ultimate RSI. Okay. Even the ultimate RSI has not showed we've truly topped yet. Okay. We have room to run. We can add in our bubble risk indicator. Okay. We have not truly bubbled or hit that bubble. Again, as I was talking about with stocks earlier, we don't even have quantitative easing yet. We had quantitative easing at the bottom in 2020, and it shot us up. We are already having a decent recovery, and we have not had QE yet. So I think I slowly see this narrative forming of QE coming and blasting the S&P in the high 6,000s and Bitcoin towards that 200K area. There's another indicator to watch for, tether dominance. So if you don't know what tether is, and sorry, I'm not trying to sound condescending. I'm just trying to speak as an educator, if you will. When tether dominance hits these lower trend line, it's typically around the top. Tether is the number 3 crypto. It's a stable coin, always retains a value of $1. And so if you want to retain your Satoshi value, you get out of altcoins, Bitcoin, you get into Tether, you keep your value. But when it's more risk on, you get out of Tether and you get back into your cryptos. Tether dominance would show we haven't even bottomed yet. And we could still see there's still room to run on all these indicators to show the top hasn't come in yet. And as I showed you with Mara from 2017, Marathon as a miner can just chop sideways until it rips off. Whoop, I clicked the wrong one, son of a gun. Fat fingered it. Mara can chop sideways until it pops off. Let's go back to 2017. Just chopping sideways. $4, $9, $5, boom. $40, it's done. Okay? Now, if we go to, I'll show you another reason why I'm just comparing this more to 2017. And I'm not saying it has to be exactly like 2017, but it's definitely so far not 2020 to 21, where we get this nice steady rotation. We have been falling off, and when we get these massive sell-offs, it makes sense to have somewhat of a V recovery. Now, we don't even have on our moving averages yet. We have to get above that 50-week moving average. That's truly when we're getting bullish, okay? But here, fell off dramatically, and then boom, that rotation lasted a month. So I'm not saying it's only going to last a month. Maybe it'll last half a year, half a year to 9 months, something like that. But once we see ETH Bitcoin getting around this 30 to 40%, that's typically when we've seen the top. Okay. By January 8th, the top was in. Okay. Here we go. And we are around 0.4 to 0.5. By early May, the top was in. Okay. And we were around 0.3 to 0.5. So all things being equal, if they are again, once we're getting towards this 618 on ETH Bitcoin, getting into here, that's where you might see a Mara pop off. So let's see. So how can see top for Bitcoin? Is Mara a good buy these days? In my opinion, I like Mara. Now, as far as right now at this specific moment, what do we have going on? We have a descending channel, if you will. It's not a perfect channel. Let's go over to the daily. Let's zoom out a little bit because I'll try to make this as accurate as I can. It's not a perfect channel. They don't always have to be. Sometimes we invalidate channels too. There's that low back there as well. But just to prove a point, we are overall in this channel, and Mara is at resistance. Now, there's a couple ways to look at it. Here's some thoughts that run through my head when I'm thinking of buying. I look at a stock, a crypto, and I say, where's its price within the range of the last year or so? So we can go back to January 24. It's within the lower area of that range. I could just take a look at it that simply and be like, you know what? I can dollar cost average some money from my monthly budget. Again, never encouraging investing more than you can afford. We all have bills and stuff, so we got to be smart. We are retail after all, but I might look and say it's within the range of the lows. I'm just going to buy it and forget it, because if you're of the mindset that Mara can get up to its former all-time highs, 80, or that trend line, 160, 170, and you're buying here, you're talking about a 5x to a 10x. So you're not really going to care if you bought the perfect bottom of this channel. We're not going to be having a bragging match like, well, I bought Mara at $12. I bought Mara at 16. It can be as simple as saying we're within the range of the lows. Cool. However, I will say right now at this very moment, we have the 200-day moving average, which has been recent resistance. We have the 0.5 macro fib. It's been recent resistance. If I'm being a little greedy, I might try getting Mara at one of these moving averages, something around 1480 to 1530. So I'm always trying to increase the value I buy. If Mara ever gets to the lower end of this channel, or that 382 fib at around the high $10 to $12 range, I'm buying no matter what. That's me. So that's one of my targets where if I'm being a little bit more greedy, I'm buying Mara in that area. Okay, where it's I don't mind getting in and pulling from my budget early if we hit there. So we've had a recent move up. Bitcoin showing a little bit of a correction. Micro-wise, I might be looking for that. If we draw a micro fib just from our recent high to low, we have to put our fib on log scale. And I'm showing you and saying my process. I'm externally processing. We recently got above that micro. This would be a bullish scenario reason to buy. We got above our micro 382. If we've gotten above our 382 and we're holding it, that could be a good reason to buy. Okay. We do have lower highs, lower lows, so it's another descending channel within a descending channel, right? I hope you see that, but I'll draw it out. Are we in something like this? Are we going to stay above the 382? If we break back under the 382, there's lots of ways to look for targets. You have to decide how to look for it, but as far as what I do, I'm not telling you what to do. If I look within the last year, it's within the range of its lows. I'm fine with it. I believe Mara, the strongest miner, could get back up to its all-time high, if not higher. I don't hate buying it here, but if it gets down here, I'm going to be greedy and buy no matter what. That's my approach and how I'm looking at it. So, in my opinion, Mara, being the mining stock that has the second most amount of Bitcoin behind MicroStrategy, which has done amazingly well since its lows at around $20. It's gone up a ton, almost a 30x, a 25x on average, or 20x right now. Yeah, I believe Mara, if it were all of a sudden just popping off, take your profit. So I do like Mara. Let's get into some of our other indicators. Again, if you have any requests for certain stocks or cryptos, comment below. Bitcoin dominance getting above the 64% level is concerning. I think we got to watch what it does here at 65%, and then we'll see. But if it were to break down, when I look at moving averages, I look at it in two ways. One, these are levels to break, but two, where has it bounced before? So it likes testing that 50-day moving average, gets underneath there. If it gets under the 100-day, then I'm getting more excited. 200-day, I'm very excited. And so Bitcoin dominance is, right now, it's just bullish, which sucks. Let's go over to the total three. Total three, been in this ascending channel. What moving average is it like before? It really likes the 50-week, and sometimes it kind of gets close to the 100-week at worst. So it kind of looks like total three. Again, this is all the crypto market cap outside of Ethereum and Bitcoin. $834 billion is in all the cryptos. Outside of that, I might be looking for that $781 billion area as a local bottom for altcoins. A.dev, you're welcome. CleanSpark. Let's take a look at CleanSpark for you. Yeah, CleanSpark is it's definitely one of those miners I could see having room to run. Number 4 miner. It has a $2.8 billion market cap. If we go over to MarketWatch, I have not taken a look at CleanSpark in a hot minute. What is CleanSpark's balance sheet? If you've been watching my channel, you know why I'm hesitant on Cores. Its balance sheet is not good. Riot has a better balance sheet than CleanSpark. But if we go over to, Cores, sorry. If we go over to CleanSpark, and guys, MarketWatch, great website. Not sponsored, highly recommend. I try to speak to the casual, patient investor, trade investor on this channel. I'm just trying to show you simple ways to look at things. You can get way more technical advanced than things I show you on this channel, but I don't want to get too much into the weeds where I'm speaking over the casual viewer's head. So as far as CleanSpark, total current assets, 700 million, 2 billion total assets. What's its ratio? Total current, 200 million, let's round up. Total liabilities, 230. Very good asset to liability ratio. Very good. And so for CleanSpark, I like that. As far as its chart, did it really top off in 2017? Not really. 2017, it was kind of a nothing burger until late 2018. I think there was a crypto called EOS that had a later top. So A.dev, he talked about when Bitcoin tops, if miners don't go, you just kind of sell and take your profits. I mean, that's up to you how much you want to bag hold. Don't get too married to any stock or crypto, especially in the world of crypto. When it comes to stocks, I think, patience and bag holding can eventually pay off if you like something enough. But in 2020, here's something to consider. This one topped out before Bitcoin. Bitcoin was topping over here, and it topped out before. Remember what we saw with Mara? Mara topped out before Bitcoin did. And here we have another one. So I don't believe Bitcoin's topped yet again. We're in a bullish descending channel. Right now, all the moving averages on the weekly are resistance, and we have the 0.5. If we break the 0.5, if you're getting CleanSpark anywhere around the low $6, I think that's, for me, I do like CleanSpark. I would not miss buying at that area. But if it breaks under the 382 in this channel, that's not looking good, at least medium term for that stock. Going over to the daily, it's trying to battle those moving averages. The 200 day moving average, you can see ever since it broke down from the high there, it has rejected it every time. We're getting close to that. If we start closing and breaking above, that's going to be very bullish for CleanSpark. But we also have this higher low trend line. We're underneath. Can we even get above that? So getting above that trend line and the 200 day, would be key in my opinion. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get a little rejection down to that $8 range. $8 range, the mid $8 range would be an area to target. That $6 range, again, anything in that low $6 range I like. And you're welcome. Thank you for being here. I try to make these live streams a conversation. A lot of crypto channels, it seems like an ego battle. The guy with the YouTube channel talks like he knows everything that he's talking about, he or she, that they're the expert. I don't want to come off that way. I just want to show you what I look at, and we have a conversation. People are always welcome to disagree on things, but I'm just trying to share what I see. So I appreciate you being here. And I like the community that's forming here. Let's take a look at ETH. We have these series of higher lows. Broke under that. Kind of got near that higher low structure. And it's losing the 618 fib, holding on to the 200. We have the 50 and the 100 there, but if it loses these moving average supports, watch for the 50 at around 2071 for ETH. And I think, here's just a little trend line we can see. Yeah, it runs right into this. So I think there might be some key support here at the low 2300, breaking underneath that. A lot of things have been, we've seen Bitcoin going up and these other stocks going up and then breaking under their higher low trend line. Massive higher low trend line, from this cycle. I think it's worth bearing note that, we saw something like this after the mid-cycle top where ETH broke underneath that higher low structure, went down for a bit. You can see there's this descending channel here. And once it started to break up, that was good. Of course, we got COVID and then QE. But, right now, if we were to get something of a, just descending structure, I don't know. Are we just sort of flash crashing on ETH before going up? Maybe, because look at this. It hit that 100-month moving average and stayed above the 382, the 100-month moving average, and just has been blasting off. So maybe we're seeing more of a V recovery for ETH here. I mean, yeah, does that not look like a V right there? So if ETH ever gets back above 4K, ETH is one of those, I think, especially with the ETH Bitcoin pairing and where the upper trend line goes. If ETH gets anywhere near 10, 11K, that you're probably very near the top for this crypto cycle. Let's take a look at a couple altcoins, and I might close the video soon. We've been going for, how long has this live stream been going? We're getting up on an hour, so I might wrap things up here sometime soon. We've already talked about miners. Chainlink, one of my favorite long-term cryptos. This is one where, I'll, of course, try to hopefully hit some of my profit targets for Chainlink. Right now, I like Chainlink as a long-term buy. I think it's one of, as far as when I look at the top cryptos, XRP's already run. It already has a $130 billion market cap. How well could XRP do this cycle? Maybe a 2 or 3x at best. Solana, I think there's room to run for Solana. Maybe somewhere around a 5x to 7x at best. But as we keep going down, Chainlink's one of those where I could see this one really doing well, doing over a 10 or 12x. So as far as coins that show good utility, and I think there's a lot of coins that have good long-term potential in here, but I think as far as the most potential for solid altcoin projects, Chainlink's one that I've liked the research on. Again, we're in the very early stages of crypto. I'm not telling you I'm a cultist on any of these, even Chainlink. I'm just taking a look at pure numbers perspective and where they could run or how well they can run from here. So as far as potential to possibly have a very good solid return, I like Chainlink. And, some of those targets I'm looking for in an alt season environment, I'd be looking for Chainlink to hit some of these targets, 1618 to the 4236, 80 to 200 as far as areas to withdraw. Let me go through a couple other altcoins that You guys request in the comments time to time. Let's go over to Bonk. There is someone who likes to call himself the Bonk Father. And as far as its recent high to low structure, it's under the 382, which is not good. Getting some support at that 236. So if you like Bonk, not the worst dollar cost averaging area, but it's broken that. We talk about these ascending channels. It's broken that structure, and so this would be the first buy area of support, and we see structure here in the past. It likes the 236, but being under the 382, what does that mean? It means that a new lower low is always a possibility. Once we got under the former 382, we broke that low. So if we zoom out and just let's draw a general trend line, if you will. Nothing too fancy here, but we'll try to get it somewhat correct. If Bonk were to break under, I'd be watching this area. Like 5 zeros, 895, 5 zeros and a 9. Hey, Van the Man. He was lurking. He was lurking and not commenting. There you are. Yeah, I do like this as if you love Bonk, and you're just playing it as an educated gamble, here's an area where I'd say, whatever, throw it $100 or something at it, and maybe you get 1,000 out of it by the time we get alt season. But if we get lower, anywhere around those lows, I'd be taking a look at Bonk. I've talked about being this cycle's SHIB, whereas Pepe, I prefer to Doge. We do have some Doge fans in here. Oh, Elon, the whole Doge connection from last cycle, I do not know how Doge is looking, so we're looking at it together. So Doge also taking a hit. Is it because of Elon and Trump's breakup? We'll see. But we have these series of highs, higher lows. We also have this micro fib from this high to low, and it's under its 382. So, and it's getting under its 236. I would be watching for this trend line area. Doge at around 14 cents again is what I'm looking for Doge. But again, I'm not as big on Doge as I am Pepe this cycle. I think Pepe is kind of the new Doge, and its structure just looks better. It feels so stupid to say it, this dumb meme frog, but there's no denying Pepe has been stronger than Doge. And, its trend's been better. It's at these supports. I have a low to high fib here. It came down to its 382. Back up, it's at its 236. But as far as recent areas, I have micro fib high to low. Pepe and Bonk, I think, aren't bad dollar cost average territories right now. But Doge, I think Doge you can get at a little bit cheaper price at around 14 cents, in my opinion. Let's take a look at Solana and XRP. Curious how those are doing. So XRP, hit that 1618, from its recent high to low, fib off log. Let's match up the low here. XRP is at an important level. It's at its 200-day moving average. If you like XRP, this could be a dollar cost average territory, but if it breaks underneath there, let's go to the weekly. At the weekly, it just touched its 50 week moving average or got close to it. So if it gets close to it and you're an XRP fan, you're looking at something around $1.80 to $1.90 in there. Let's take a look at Solana. I think we've been doing the Coinbase chart. As far as Solana, getting down to its 100-week moving average, that could be an area of support. We have the 382 there, 146. Solana, let's go in on the daily. Daily, it's right at its 382. So if you like Solana, I think there's some good bouncing territories or good supports coming in for some of these. So XRP, if you like that 200-day, awesome. Solana, we're at a 382. Again, I'm not saying any of these can't go lower, but my perspective is this. If you like a stock or crypto and it's hitting your level, you can dollar cost average in from your budget and be happy you got a discount. And if it goes lower, you can dollar cost average in at your next targets. And you should be more happy about getting it at more of a discount. That is my mindset and how I operate. You can disagree with that. That's fine. That's how I look at things. And in the long run, overall pays off. Probably 9 out of 10 times it pays off if you have patience. If you don't have patience, then yeah, you're then this sucks. But if you do have patience, you're excited. Again, I'm trying to, on this channel, every video, I'm trying to encourage you to think like smart money and not retail dumb money. And retail dumb money doesn't buy in at the dips. They get discouraged, they get pissed off. You want to be excited about the discounts. That's how you get good deals. We bouncing off that 50 pixel pusher. Are you referring to Bitcoin? Pixel pusher. I'll say this. I like these wicks. The longer the wicks, the more support or resistance, depending on which way we're looking. Okay, so we have long wicks underneath. That could be showing that we're getting good support off the 50 and the 1618 at 102K. So the 50-day moving average of 1618, I like those. We were taking a look at a channel with Others Bitcoin, and Others is the total market cap of all cryptos outside of the top 10. But we were taking a look at this descending channel, higher highs, higher lows. Others getting under its macro 382. That's not good, but it is at the lower end of this channel. As we stay at the lower end of that channel, I like that for altcoins. I will also add, as far as our alt season, altcoin year index, I mean, this is showing where those lows have been, and we're right around the range of those lows. So I know it sucks for altcoins now, but I think across multiple charts, including Others Bitcoin, that 382 in the lower area of this channel, I mean, yes, it could go lower. We can go to the 236. Or is it? I mean, I hope we don't break this structure, but as long as we're at the lower end of the structure, sometimes we V out of it, sometimes we slowly recover out of it. But the fact we're at the lower end of that structure, I think it might be, I think it is decent time to dollar cost average altcoins. And again, not saying they can't go lower, but I'm liking what I'm seeing across the charts as far as buying at good discount structure territory. That's how I'm seeing it. Oh, cool. You're coming in when Bitcoin came up. You think when they stop QT and go into QE that retail returns? I think so. Pixel pusher. Let's close with this. We'll circle back to what we talked about earlier. Something I talked about at the start of the video is how this is a U.S. central bank balance sheet. Last time we went QT to QE, you can see that ticker, USC BBS. We bounced off the 100-month moving average. Now here is when we went to true QE, when the Fed turned on the money printer. We went from 4.2 trillion to 7 trillion. 3 trillion printed out of thin air, and the market ripped. We are right near that 100-month moving average. Okay, we're right there. So when we go back to QE, maybe we tick down one more to 6.6 trillion, but when we go back to QE, I believe so. And one of the comparisons, I talked about this in the stock video yesterday, is that we have this nice V recovery, tested the 888, getting above the 888, okay? We last had something like this with the COVID crash. We had this massive V recovery, tested the 888, got above it. I'm looking for all-time highs next, and then, testing the 888 again, maybe something like this. But I will remind you that QE came in down here. We have not had QE yet. We've already had the nice recovery. This is just how I'm processing this. We had that sell-off. Okay, the tariff sell-off. Instead of COVID, it was tariffs. We had that sell-off. We tested the 888. We're above it. We haven't even had QE yet. And so as far as building a narrative of how do we get high 6,000 S&P, 7,000 S&P, how do we get 150 to 200K Bitcoin, how do we get the Schiller P ratio to have a .com style euphoric blow off top. Are you with me as far as seeing like that could be a narrative that comes up by the time all is said and done? That QE is going to return after we already established a great recovery. And that's going to rocket us up really quick. It'll be euphoric. Wall Street bets, pump it up, all that stuff. It's all going to come back. And then we crash. Then we have our massive yield curve uninversion correction. 2026 sucks. Okay. That's my working narrative. That's what I'm looking for in a bullish scenario. Not saying we can't get a recessionary structure out of this and then, top in 2028, and this is all just one massive fake out. Anything's possible. But as far as the bullish case scenario, that is what I'm looking for. The S&P, again, it's already recovered and we don't have QE yet. Once QE returns, I could see that being the catalyst. Let's see. Yeah, this looks like a local bottom for alts. If not the local bottom, close to it. I'm just reading through your comments here. That looks good, my man. We can smell an altcoin run, like blood in the air or blood in the water. Let's think of ourselves as sharks. Why not? We got to eat those whales, take some of their money. I truly think if Powell would have dropped QT earlier, that we would be in euphoria right now. Yeah, Trump's been calling Powell too late, Powell. And I do think there's something to that, whether you like or dislike Trump. I do think there's something to that the Fed, they just go by what the data shows them. And they are not going to do quantitative easing when they don't have to. We could take a look at inflation and unemployment. They're not going to do massive cuts until they absolutely have to. Inflation, it's getting lower. So why cut if inflation's coming down? They want to hit that 2%. That's their magic number. Unemployment, if unemployment starts to get above this 50-day moving average, then I can see if unemployment starts getting towards 5% or 4.5 to 5%, I could see cuts coming back. Speaking of, I think it's US INTR. Again, I compare a lot of things with the late 90s. Let's turn off these moving averages, clean it up. So the Fed was cutting rates. Again, I've talked about 1998. They cut by 25 basis points. 25 basis point average cuts is non-recessionary. They even raised rates, okay? They raised rates. We already went through that. When they're cutting by 50, look out below. That's when it's bad, when they cut by 50. We can even add on the SPX. Let's prove our point here. When the Fed's cutting by 50, not good, okay? That's the S&P behind us, okay? So they've cut by 25 basis points. Again, they could raise and we could still go up. I remember this conversation multiple times. The Fed's raising rates. It's a delayed indicator, right? So the rates thing, it might just be level. Maybe they cut by 25 basis points a few more times and we rock it up. There's no true correlation with that. But I think the true chart to watch more than the rates is this, the U.S. Central Bank balance sheet. And again, once they start getting detached a little bit, I think that's when it's time to run. What is the MACD? All right, you want some bullishness? Here it is. We talk about the MACD a lot. When did the MACD really flip? Right before QE went berserk. What's the MACD doing? This is the first time I'm looking at this with you guys. And if I did look at it before, it's months ago and I forgot. The MACD is showing it's even getting ready to flip. So, there we go. I think we see this growing narrative. QE coming back after we already had a recovery. That's how we get our 200K Bitcoin, 7K S&P, euphoric top. Take your profits and then get back in on the crash. Get back in when we have the bottom 2026 or later. I mean, let's take a look at this. This is the yield curve on inversion. These red lines, by the way, are the market bottoms. But we can just go to, let's overlay the S&P again. Okay. You can see where the yield curve, when it's uninverting, where's the bottom? When it's uninverting, where's the bottom? This indicator is goated. When it's uninverting, there's the bottom. We're uninverting, okay? The bottom could be further out in 2026. And by the way, from the start to the uninversion to the bottom, we've talked about this, how it's like 500 to 600 days. We're on the monthly right now. Sorry, that's my cat's automatic feeder. That's my robotic voice telling him it's time to eat. But as far as this uninversion, let's go to the weekly. As far as this uninversion, if we're just taking that average of 600 days, give or take, that's in 2026. Again, that goes in line with the crypto 4-year cycle, 2026 being bad. It goes in line with the presidential cycles, the yield curve on inversion. I think there's a lot to go with it. The only thing that might delay it is, we had a massive inversion. So maybe we run up a little longer than people think. There's a famous quote, the market can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. Maybe the market rockets up longer than we think. Possible. We'll see. But if yields really start to spike, if you're watching the 10-year, the 30-year, pay attention, because yield indicators, maybe I need to talk more about them on this channel. You guys are smart enough. Yields going up, bad for stocks. People will take a safe yield return over a risky, volatile market. So that's my TLDR about that. The crash is going to be epic afterwards. It's like we are flooring the gas with the e-brake on. Yeah, that's a good analogy. Flooring the gas with the e-brake on. Trump knows QT is hindering the market. Businesses aren't expanding and taking on risk and debt to grow. We need to prosper. Yeah, I think love or hate Trump, and I'm not a fan of his ego by any means. I understand the tariff thing. He's trying to build businesses locally, and there's a massive debt problem. And one of their ways they want to address the debt problem is by decreasing regulation and growing the economy. So more important than the debt is our GDP. And as long as the debt to GDP ratio stays rational, they're all about decreasing regulation, growing local GDP. So I get what they're trying to do. How they're going about trying to do it, I don't always agree with. You can add in conspiracies about, even immigration stuff, making sure that they don't have illegals with jobs and local Americans with jobs. I'm not saying I love how they do all that either, but yeah, I do see what they're trying to do, but I think it's more of a long-term approach. And also this, you don't get reelected in down economies. That's why Trump didn't get reelected. When he did, the economy was struggling, COVID. That's why he wanted the money printer on. When the economy's doing well, you get reelected. Democrats, the economy, inflation, it was a problem. And they tried gaslighting people into saying it really wasn't when it was, and that kicked them in the butt. So Trump knows, he's a smart marketer, and he knows what it takes to have a strong economy. He wants that QE and the market doing well in 2026 for Congress and the Senate to retain their power and control. So he's smart about those things, and if the market's doing well by November 26th, that's what he's hoping for. I don't know if that's going to happen though. Confluence, laughing face. It also goes with that classic cyclical chart. It starts with the B and it shows 2026 as being a crash. Oh, yeah. I know which chart you're showing. Are you referring to it's like a brown old chart where there's all those waves within cycles? I think I know what you're talking about. Um, any chart, any indicator I take with a grain of salt, pixel pusher. But if there's a narrative growing between the charts and confluence, as you said, between the charts, then I think that should start swaying our perspective. So, again, on this channel, I don't want to get married to predictions. I said all the reasons for a bullish, bullish conditions, and that's to get our 4-year cycle. The one bearish narrative that lives in my head rent free is that, technically speaking, between the halving, the top was in March of 24. The one thing I'm worried about is if that reset the 4-year cycle and this is all just a massive fake out, we get a recession and the top is in 28. If that narrative plays out, I think we could look at this as our warning sign. Not saying that will happen. I hope it doesn't happen. But if that were to happen, I'm going to be like, that's where it was. That was showing us something. We'll see. So anyways, let's, the better cycle chart. Yeah. Anyways, Pixel Pusher, thanks for being part of the conversation here. Always enjoy talking with you guys and going through the charts while we have conversations. I love it. Yeah. Let's wrap it up there. And so, anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hope you all doing well. That you have a fantastic Friday. Summer is here. June is here. And let's close out with this. Pay attention to the summer. The summer usually sucks for Bitcoin. In 2017, on our way to the peak, the summer was overall pretty good. In 2020, when we were within a year of the peak, the summer was pretty good too. Yeah, we had a couple down months, June and September, but we had a great July. Overall, the summer was good. If we are within a year of the peak, I am expecting the summer to not suck, as it usually does, but to be okay. Maybe okay is good enough, and we get our classic 4-year cycle narrative. That's what I'm looking for. So, thank you so much for watching. Pixel Pusher, A.Dev, Charles, all you guys, Van the Man, thanks for commenting. Appreciate the conversations. And yeah, hopefully, let's just be patient, buy these dips. I think this is a juicy dip right now, worth putting some money into, and hopefully it pays off. And we can get some profit before the next crash and rotate into that crash or recession. So, yeah, screenshot this chart and look at this once a month. So when we do get that recession, remember how rare are these opportunities. I want all of us to be able to capitalize on that. And patience is the key. So thank you again for watching, and have a great day. Cordy UIOP, you're welcome. Van the Man, appreciate you. So take care, guys.